Good morning, my name's Mark Guille. I'm Professor of Developmental Genetics at the University of Portsmouth, where I also head the Animal Welfare and Ethical Review Body. And my other role is as lead of the European Xenopus Resource Centre. The main thing that the university does is to have quite a great deal of information and case studies on its website, which is easily accessible for those who need it. The other thing that we do is we put out press releases. We take animals to the large schools science fair that happens in Hampshire and talk about their use in research in that context. And finally, we've started to do some work with patient groups from the rare to genetic disease community. So a range of things. There's always more we could do, but we are engaged with the process. We've got one that involves us and the Frog Centre, where we take embryos and adults to the Hampshire Science Fair. And we've done that for a number of years now, and it reaches a large number of young people. And the purpose is to talk about not only the work we do, but how that has to be balanced against the ethical use of animals in research and the idea of a cost-benefit analysis. It's proven effective. It generates many, many questions, both from the young people and their teachers. For me, a major reward is actually in the teaching part of what I do, where I teach biology and pharmacy students deliberately about animal ethics. And I think it's the fact that, initially to my surprise, a lot of them have not really thought this through, even though they're coming into areas where inevitably they're going to come into contact with research on animals. And the reward is actually getting them to think it through and seeing them talk it through in discussion groups and really start to make their own minds up and to have a good context and some accurate information to work with. So yeah, that's a big area of reward for me personally. And also, I think just recently with patient groups, being able to answer questions about cost-benefit analysis and how it's undertaken, because it's obviously a concern for parents whose children are reliant on animal experimentation to some degree for advancing their treatments. In terms of the challenges of speaking about animal research, I think the main one is the turnaround in thinking that people have to undertake when you start to explain to them about how experiments end in the death of an animal, and how if anything goes wrong in an experiment, your immediate response is to kill an animal humanely, because that's so different from the way they would treat their pets. And it's a proper challenge when you're talking to people to get them to understand why that's the case. It's having to turn their thinking around on that point. I think in most of what we talk about, there's an easy to follow sense for people, but that one consistently they find hard. For me, it's around the openness question overall. We have to be open about animal research. Even as somebody who's worked their entire adult life with animals, the ethical questions still arise all the time. And I think that's true not just of me, but everyone I know who works with animals. If we're in a position of really quite deep knowledge about the processes, about what happens, about the regulation of animal research, then how on earth can we expect a public to be able to make its mind up about a really difficult ethical decision for each individual, I believe, without a good knowledge of what goes on? It's simply unreasonable. We have to be open, and as open as we can possibly be. So this is part of that process, and I think it's incredibly important.